If you look at the numbers, Trump won. Men, he won by 54%. We knew that. Women, though, were 53% of the electorate, but Trump still won 44%. Kamala won 54%. It's a majority, but it's a slight majority. She had just got 65% of women, which she courted, then she would have won this election. With black people, which is 11% of the electorate, 86%. So black people stayed firm for the most part. Black men, she got 78% of our vote. 20%, 1 in 5 black men went for Trump. And I think the title of the episode, Mr. Benja, is Two Woke Bros Go for Trump.
Wait.
Hey everyone, this is Show versus Business, where pop culture meets pop money. We host The Real Theo Harvey and Mr. Benja. So, Mr. Benja, what is going on today?
Today, man, we're in a little bit of a time, man. I suppose everyone's feeling the after effects of the election. I strolled into Target and on November 1st and all the Halloween stuff was out of there. And it's time. Skip Thanksgiving. That doesn't even exist anymore. It's time for Christmas, all the decorations, people feeling their feelings in different ways. This year feels strange, man. It's going into this holiday season and post-election. We'll talk about all of that. And maybe a little bit of planning for next year, but mostly we're going to talk about the election, I think. Those are most of the topics and how we're doing. And speaking of how we're doing, how are you, Theo?
I'm doing okay, man. Election night, I slept like a baby.
Not everyone did.
No, it was weird. Maybe because I stayed up during 2016, the last time.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? 2020, I don't remember much about 2020. I don't know if you do. It's like weird how 2020 election was it's like almost a dream. I don't remember being that invested in it, maybe because we're all still dealing with the pandemic and trying to handle all that. And the election seems so far away, but maybe we'll discuss that. But this election, yeah, man, like literally last week I was on the polls. I was looking at stuff. I said, oh, she got a chance. This could happen. This could happen. She got to win this. And the night of, I was ready. I had my stuff. I was like, I'm going to stay up around 9:30. I started getting sleepy. I was like, you know what? It's not that serious. I went to bed, man.
Yeah.
And it was my wife who kept waking me up in the middle of the night at key moments. And we'll talk about it. That was, oh no, what happened? And then it's like a slow moving horror film. And I guess I didn't want to have to deal with that. So that's why I went to bed early. So yeah, I slept like a baby, man.
There's a psychological thing for that. I'm not saying this is what happened to you, but people have been trying to figure it out, and there's new research coming out that what a lot of people have attributed to boredom is actually a part of the nature response. Say, hey, what do you do when you're confronted with something? There's flight, fight, and then there's a whole bunch of other types of other responses that are still being studied. Fake, faint, lie, whatever. They realized that kind of shutting down and going to sleep was one of those. So people are researching this. I definitely not saying this is a thing or something that you have or you might not have or anybody has. But I notice it's just a defense mechanism where it's, hi, I should be invested in this. In your mind, you're like, I'm really not invested in this.
Literally, that's what happened. But it was like, I got an inkling. Yeah, I'm on the East Coast, right? So I got an inkling. My wife was freaking out, but I know a little bit about the Electoral College and how it works. And I knew when it becomes like 11 o'clock our time, 8 o'clock your time, when the polls close, she was going to get all these electoral votes, right? Because of California and stuff. But a lot of folks don't understand that. She was, oh, why she's only got 20 electoral votes? I was like, trust, it's coming. But what gave me pause, what I saw was happening in Georgia, and we'll talk about it later. And I was like, okay, there's some demographic things happening here.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, that's when I started to, you know what? I think I'm just going to go to bed.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out in the morning.
Yeah. And before we get to it, I guess just coming up, I guess there are ramifications here for AI, technology, different groups of people, Black women, Black men, Latinos, etc., white people, what they're up to, the marketing of it. And so we can touch on all those things in a bit.
Yeah, I think you'll get to the guys. If you want to fast forward our little get to catch up together thing, go ahead, speed on. But look, this is what we do, guys, if you listen to this podcast. But yeah, man, a couple of fun things I did this week. Nostalgia movie night. Do you remember Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon?
Sure enough.
Don't know. Man, You talk about comedy. Boy, I haven't seen that movie maybe about 10 years. It was always a good time, but the older you get, the more you like, this movie is crazy. It's like a mix between Chinese and African American influences. Is basically got the whole Rhythm of the Night music video in it. It's like a musical because they got 5 complete songs in the movie. They had this big fight scene at the end when they got this mohawk looking fat bastard looking dude. If you know, Fat Bastard is a character from you know what Fat Bastard looked like in
Austin Powers.
What's that? Yeah, Austin Powers, series. It was just bananas, man. And I'm watching with my son and my wife. I was like, this is a crazy movie. I didn't know it was that crazy. And then you get hype if you ever watch the movie, spoiler alert for a movie that's been out for 40 years. And he gets that glow, right? And then he puts him in the water, he dunks him. He said, "Who's the master? Who's the master?" And he's flashing back. And he says, at the end, "I'm the master." And he starts that glow. I said, I'm still feeling that, man. I'm still feeling it. He's glowing. He does that slow motion Bruce Lee action. And everybody's like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Man, great movie, man. I don't care what they say, man. Just the 80s vibe of it all, the cheesiness, but just the earnestness, and then the black flavor mixed in with the Chinese flavor. William H. Macy, shout out to an actor that's still working today. He showed up in a small role. Craziness, man. Yeah, man. I loved it, man. So yeah, I saw my son is into karate. He's almost close to getting a black belt. And so we've been watching a lot. Right. Yeah. So we're going to watch. I said, look, you got to watch Bruce Lee now, right? We're going to start watching some of that stuff to get him hype as he gets closer to his black belt.
Man, don't let me bring out the Wu-Tang collection that I had in college. 5 Deadly Venoms. I put all y'all on that.
You did, Mr. Hey, if you don't know, Mr. Benja went deep dive on all the every member, who they were, where they came from, what they were about. Yes, I remember those long conversations. Man, but what other things here, real quick? Rest in power, Quincy Jones, music producer extraordinaire.
That guy is, he's crazy. I don't mean that like a mentally out there kind of thing. People who live lives and do things and talk about things. And if you search online for, I'm not talking about accolades. Oh, this guy, he got the blah, blah, blah award. He did the this and that. Quincy Jones was just a person always involved in something. And if you go around looking up Quincy Jones interviews, articles, mentions, people's stories about him, there's always some crazy story. Yeah, I was over at Quincy Jones' house, and then he just picks up the phone, hangs up. Next thing I know, these other people show up, and we had a full-on recording session, and he says he's going to give a recording contract to this guy if he shows up in the next 10 minutes. And you hear a Lamborghini crashing through the gates. There's all these crazy stories, and he was off the chain in so many ways. Just research him. I can't even start to point out he's crazy because of this. It's like Kanye level stories when you just hear about what happens when Kanye shows up. I think actually that's what Kanye is trying to do, is amass as many interesting stories as Quincy Jones had.
Oh, wow. Well, that's deep cut, man. I didn't know. Is he a Quincy Jones fan, or was he Kanye a Quincy Jones fan, or you think that's kind of, yeah.
That seems like something that would be like, you meet somebody like Quincy Jones. Wow, this person is just always on and pushing it. Obviously, Quincy Jones isn't as loud and boisterous and off-putting as Ye can be. But no, dude just was out there doing stuff. And as I said, Hollywood stories, Motown stories, Bay Area stories. There's so many of these stories that just center around Quincy Jones coming in and doing stuff. Somebody couldn't figure out the drum beat on this one song, so he sends them out he says, "Hey, let's all take a break." He sends the guy out for lunch and then brings everybody back to the secret and does the drums himself, or finds some other guy to do it. And then when they re-record it, they're like, "Hey, these drums sound good." And the guy doesn't even realize that his drums have been re-recorded by some random guy. And all these years, that guy never got credit, but he got paid or something. It's just like stories like that. Yeah, that's me on the radio. Actually, it's not.
Yeah. He's done everything, man. He worked with Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack back in the 60s. And then obviously the things that we probably know him from, right, which is working with Michael Jackson. I didn't know he produced Off the Wall, which is a classic. If you guys, that's the banger. I discovered that freshman year at FAMU in college. And I was like, because I think the band had performed it. And I was like, what's that? I went all in on that Off the Wall album, man. Yeah, that sold for 20 million. But really the one that just took it to stratosphere was Thriller, which he basically produced most of those songs for Michael Jackson. And that's 65 million copies and became the highest record album of the all time. But yeah, I think, his collaboration with Michael is really what people remember. But yeah, he used to do, I think there's a documentary on Quincy Jones. I watched it. He talked about like his life as a film composer and the movies he produced and the TV shows. He did Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So yeah, man, prolific guy, man, awesome guy, what he did and the amazing things he did. So yeah, rest in power. And then a little bit smaller note, but also very important, Tony Todd, man, the Candyman, prolific actor, did other things besides being Candyman, but man, he just passed away recently. So yeah, man, yeah, these guys, they live great lives and they did things, and hopefully we can, some small way, impact the world that they had. And one little small thing I want to talk about too, man, I think we talk about Quincy Jones and we talk about success, man. I was talking to my kids about this the other day and I was like, you know what? Hear these stories of athletes, man, and how they went deep dive in different things that they did to become successful. But a lot of it wasn't just about being success at the job they did. It was almost like a release, right? They talk about how, what's his name? LeBron James, he struggled with having a stability in his home life, but he found a stability in basketball, friendships, right? And so it became a release for him. And I talked to one of my friends. She used to be like, she has a state record in running the 200. 400. She never made to the Olympics, but she got, scholarships to Michigan State. Yeah. And I was talking to her. She said, yeah, when I was younger, I was just like, that was my escape. I would just run, right, to something. And I was like, you know what? That's the key to success, man. Do the thing that you can do for free, but is also mentally like your escape for something. And I think if you can find that in your life and you can do that, man, that's amazing. And so I just want to say, Mr. Benja, this podcast is very similar to that for me. This is my escape, man. So I enjoy doing it. And so I want to get better at it. But more importantly, it is my release. So thank you for being my pathway toward greatness. I appreciate it.
That's funny, man. I appreciate that. And I reflect that feeling as well, this sentiment, because a lot of times I don't know how I sound in the messaging or leading up to the podcast. But before the podcast, it's before I go on stage. A lot of times I'm just like, okay, get this together, guy. And there's a certain air about me where I'm just like, I'm not having it. I'm just like, oh, come on. Oh God, got to do this. And okay, that. But once I get on stage or once I'm here doing it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I like to do. Yeah. What am I talking about? This is great. This is great. We're having fun. So it's a flow thing. So if I ever put off that I didn't like it, it was just the setup and the roll in. It's just something about me. It's a me thing. The podcast is awesome.
I love it, man. What about you, Mr. Benja? You want to get into your week?
Yeah, man. Speaking of which, speaking of talking about things you don't want to do, and I do want to do the podcast, by the way, things I don't want to do. I've been really thinking about this and researching it and looking into that because of all of my creative production insights. This is the one I understood the least. I don't want to just say I have writer's block or, okay, yeah, I went ahead and did the painting, but I didn't like it. I'm like, John, what's all that about? I really want to start getting into figuring out doing what you don't want to do and what that was all about. And yeah, it led me through the Stoics. It led me through just your general motivational speakers. What's that guy's name? I forgot his name. He used to be a football player. He's always on there.
Oh, I know you're talking
Nikki Sanders, she worked with him before coming on. And even like dudes like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Pumping Iron. So just get in there, just do it, just side it out, force your way through it.
Just do it.
That whole mindset was just really bugging me. And I found joy in that finally with some understanding where we try to hide the hard thing from ourselves. It's like a psychological reaction. The humans avoid pain in very interesting ways. It's if you have a slight ache in your leg, you may limp for about a week and then you're like, okay, I'm walking normal again. But the way you're walking now is slightly different and it avoids walking that way because it might feel that pain again, but you can't tell. You really can't tell because it's just your mind's rewired and that's the way you walk now. So you walk slightly differently because you're trying to avoid that pain. Even if your foot's healed, your leg's healed or whatever, you try to avoid that pain. So there's this whole subconscious secret society of brain cells going on that hide things from you because he doesn't like this. Benjamin doesn't like that. Theo doesn't like that. We're just going to hide him from the truth completely. Like this little shadow government in your brain that hides all this stuff from you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Mm-hmm. And getting into the psychology of that, just been looking through different people and their research papers and what they've been finding out. It's fascinating. Like when you start to look into the abyss, and a lot of you were talking about this before the break. A lot of people back, like the Stoics and old thinkers, they always talk about looking into the abyss and staring into that darkness and figuring out who you are. Yeah, man. This week, I started getting headaches and all that. And it's like, where's this coming from? I'm trying to look into the abyss and my body's telling me, nah, bruh, we don't want to go there. I was like, it was weird realizing it. I'm like, I'm getting tired. I'm getting a little bit of a headache. And it's not that it's hard. It's just that a part of me, this little shadow government is saying, nah, we got to protect him from that.
And do you think it gets worse as we get older? Because I think when you're younger, you're more malleable and you really don't know what you can take or can't take. But it seems like as you get old, yeah, I think so too. Because I feel that myself. And I'm trying to break old habits, but you just have blind spots as you get older, man. We'll talk about that too, about this election. I think there were a lot of blind spots, but it's just, you're right, man. I think if you can really stare in the truth's eyes and really understand what is that pathway for you, that the stuff that you don't want to do, what are you avoiding, and you take that moment. A lot of people don't do that because we live in such an on society. The algorithms are always pinging us. Mm-hmm. It's hard to take that moment to realize if you can get to that truth of what is it, the thing that you're avoiding, and probably that thing you're avoiding is the path to your greatest success. And I think people don't realize that's the challenge in life. It's like the hardest thing is the path that you need to take.
Yeah. And it's really bizarre how that path is generally the hard thing, or at least the hard thing.
But it has to be, right? Because if there's no friction, there's no growth. And so if you have to go to the path that has friction so you can grow from that, because if you stay on the path that's smooth, then what are you learning? It's just easy to do, but you're not going to get new skill sets. You're not going to get new ways of thinking if you don't go down the rocky path.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bars. Bars. Well, let me hit you with another one. If you're talking about, I forgot the full name for it, but it's some type of intransigence. And that's when you're holding on to a belief and your heels are dug into the ground and you're like, nope, this is me, blah, 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 whatever. If you search your beliefs long enough, you're going to find one, too many, or maybe even hidden from you. But there's something in your past that happened where you made a decision without full information, without full growth knowledge and whatever. And all of a sudden that became one of your beliefs. Because you were talking about as a kid, can't you change this? It's but as a kid, we just stick with some of these things and never leaves. And I was talking about this with a friend, and he's into psychology and philosophy. And as I was talking to him, Donnie, he was on the podcast once, not this podcast, but my podcast. He was talking about this. And while he was talking, I realized, hey, wait a minute. There was a moment where I was in elementary school and I had an argument with the coach, the elementary school coach, which is coach for flag football and everything, PE, whatever, the coach. So I had an argument with the coach and I wasn't wrong, but I thought about it and I was like 11 years old, dog. And I have a belief in my head that's based on a decision I made in an argument I had when I was 11 years old. And an older me is looking at this kid, like, come on, man, be for real. But when I think about it in an adult way. You know what I mean? I always think about that event as an adult, even though it happened when I was 11 years old. So I'm like, I've got a thought that some 11-year-old bozo in some school in North Florida came up with, arguing with the teacher, a coach that was probably off its rocker a little bit, and it's now become a belief that I've held for the rest of my life.
Well,
Crazy.
man, you gotta question your beliefs, man. You gotta look into the abyss and figure out what's really driving the decisions you make. You're right. I was talking to my son about this. To this day, I have somewhat of an irrational fear of dogs because of what happened to me years when I was like 10 with my grandfather, where a dog had broke off his chain and attacked. And so it luckily didn't bite me, but it was just like that visceral reaction to this day puts me on some kind of stance, and you're like, wow, that's something that happened to me years ago. And so you got to be aware of those things. But now, man, I'm glad you're doing the deep work, man. No, not too many people do that.
Listen, hey, I had a problem with certain types of authority. And I remember the coach saying, do you want this or do you want that? And I looked around at all the people siding with coach, and I was like, I don't like none of y'all. I don't like that. And I was just being defiant because whatever. I was like, man, no, I'm going to do it this way. And he's fine. And now I catch myself in corporate offices. Mr. Johnson, why aren't you doing this, this, and this? Hey, I'm going to do it my way. And it's like, it's that same kid.
I love it.
Oh, man.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So look, guys, we're being very philosophical because what happened this week, you need to be a philosopher. Figure out what happened here.
Yeah.
Mr. Benja, man, where do we want to start with this? We don't know. We live in the United States. For those who listen to us who are international. And we elected someone who's been in our lives for a long time, ran for president one time, actually won, got kicked out, and now he's back. So Mr. Benja, Donald Trump is now president of the United States. How do we feel about that? Just you and I individually. Do you want to delve into that a little bit? Look, guys, we normally don't talk about politics, but there's so many different angles about this that we have to delve into this from the business side, technology side, culture-wise, and also marketing. So those are the areas we're going to cover, but I didn't know if you want to leave some space to just talk about our general feelings about everything.
If you would have talked to me back in the late 2000s, when I was actually on the phone banks calling for Obama and doing all that stuff and setting up Obama gatherings and get-togethers and all that, I would have felt totally different. Now I've stepped back from the machine and looked at it all and gone, this is dumb. So I'm not mad at it, but I am, and people take this the wrong way. That's why I have to preface it like this. I'm not mad at the situation, but I am just really, okay. Oh, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Okay, this is dumb. And to be clear, a guy like this ending up in the White House doing his thing, to me, it's just dumb. But it makes a lot of sense given what we've been doing all this time. And we as a country. So I don't know how to answer that question. How do I feel about it?
I was like you. I was never really involved in politics like that until this cute girl, she said, hey, you need to know what Obama's about. And so I started getting more involved in Obama and what he was doing. And then next thing I was involved in the whole campaign. And to your point, very similar story. I was really engaged right at that point. And then also it was Obama, right? We never had a president like this before. And so when he won, that just validated, oh, wow, this is possible. This is a new America. We can do different things. So I got involved in this thing called New Leaders Council, and I was involved in progressive movement and what it was going to do and change Georgia. I lived in Atlanta at the time to become blue. And I don't know if you remember Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor of Georgia. And I knew her like years ago before she was just like a lowly state senator. And so she was involved and we used to talk all the time. So I was like really engaged like you, man. Then to your point, you get busy and slowly. And I guess that 2016 election, Donald Trump won the first time. I just backed away from all that. But this time, man, I was, like I said, I slept. And so it was like, I stayed away from everything. I said, I hope she wins. I gave a little money. I went to a few things. But I was like, hey, I hope she wins. I wasn't like totally invested. Yeah. And then last week I went through some polls. Nate Silver has his like silver bullets where he was going to the polls and giving some insights. Oh, let me check this out. I paid $20 just to see what he suspected was going to happen. So that threw me for a loop when they all were BS, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, man. So early on, when I saw some of the population numbers weren't gelling right from a statistics standpoint, I was like, I'm going to bed. During the night, wife, 1:30. She lost North Carolina, Georgia. I don't know. I said, okay, man, okay. Went back to sleep. I woke up at 6. Trump then won. He got Wisconsin. It's over. I was like, oh, it is what it is. But yeah, man, I think you and I are in the same mode, and maybe that's why she lost. Kamala Harris, that's who Donald Trump was going against, because there was just such an apathy toward just institutions in general. And so this is an interesting time, man. Yeah, man. So anyway, so that's like our individual feelings, guys. I know, look, whether you're a Trump supporter or a Democratic or Kamala Harris, like I said, no, I think this is an all-inclusive podcast, because I enjoy talking to Trump supporters now. I say, why'd you vote for him? Do you think he's, going to give you what you want? And so to me, I'm excited because I think Grace behind the trailer, I got to give her a shout out, man. She broke it down, man. She was just like, you know what? Now you realize that we're not the majority no more. We thought that people that didn't like Trump was the majority. That is not the case by his really shutout win in the Electoral College and the popular vote. We are now the minority. So it's like the majority of people really like what Trump is saying, what he wants to do. And now when you realize that, you say, okay, that's the truth. So how do we deal with that now? And what do you want to do next? So it goes beyond, because remember, everybody thought it was going to be like this, going to be riots and we're going to watch the polling places and all this stuff. People were like, we're not going to know the results for 2 weeks, maybe a month, right? We knew it like by 5 a.m. the next day, man. It was like crazy. I think I'm glad that he won so decidedly, because now we can look the truth in his face. Like you said, look in the abyss and know what's the real deal, right? How people feel about things. And
Yeah. And I don't want to do a sociological population psychoanalysis of the United States or anybody, myself even. I just think that we're in an interesting place, and we can use this to really look at how we relate to each other, how we talk to each other, how we communicate in a lot of ways. This is stuff I've had to work on, where I'm talking to groups of people and they're speaking almost another language. And I'm like, what is going on? Why would you think this way? And you just like stuff on TV, or you see some stuff from afar, and you do that old Microsoft programming book that you just turn on the bozo bit and flip the bozo bit. And it's like, bozo. You vote for Trump, you're a bozo. And then all of a sudden it's on TV. Your next door neighbor is Latinos for Trump. And you're like, wait, what is this? And you're like, it just shatters your brain. I really think we need to get to a position where we're talking to each other in more appropriate ways. We're allowing for nuance and gray area. I've even taken it upon myself to start really having good discussions with people who liked The Last Jedi. So I'm healing myself.
Stop me on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Because
you're talking to me. You're talking to me. I'm a fan.
But no, it's just a strange thing. And this is why I think I've really just pulled away from elections. I'm like, this game damaging to people and societies. And I'm not sure how helpful it is to just that we start pushing our extremes here and there. And I don't know, the whole thing bores me. And now I don't know what to do in the political aspect with myself.
No, that's a valid point. I think you hit the points I agree with 100%. It's just, yeah, there could be some mix of some sexism here, some racism here and all that. But it was just so overwhelmingly toward Trump. You just have to realize it's time to have conversations and just find out what's going on with people, right? And I don't think the American people, because there's so many people, it's not a statistical anomaly. You told me this too. You're like, when there's something that's that popular, you have to just realize, accept it. I think you said that about just, and when once you embrace that, you say, okay, maybe I just need to understand because I thought something different. And you know what? I blame social media, man. We stay in these bubbles. We stay in our own little bubbles and again, I was talking about these polls, man. These polls are all wrong. They were saying things like it was going to be close. And look, when you look at the numbers, yes, statistically, state battleground states were plus or minus 3%. They were in the margin of error when it comes to statistics, but they got it totally wrong when they looked at populations, demographics like Latino men, white women, things like that. And to me, it's y'all, you can't trust these old kind of ways of looking at things, right? And because everybody's in their own little bubble, you want to believe what you want to believe. And that's the challenge now. Like, how do you break those bubbles, man? And this is very hard because you talked about it. Nobody wants to stare in the abyss and look at the truth, right? And that's the challenge. You got the algorithms trying to keep you in a bubble, and you have your own defense mechanisms keeping you from trying to get the truth.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you change in that environment? This is you really have to be intentional to try to change. Well, and now before you go, I'm even listening to these other podcasts, man. The Democrats, they just got the violins out, like all this stuff. What's blowing my mind, Mr. Benja, is they're still thinking that the people didn't understand enough because there was so much misinformation. They're voting against their own interests. The people are just too stupid. Yeah. Basically, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, and
they're
that's
just
driving
too
you
stupid.
further into the...
Yeah, you're driving. Why would you say that? That was very intelligent, very articulate. It was like she made some good points. But when she said, I was listening to her, it was an interview. It was Jon Stewart. I forgot the young lady's name, but she was very intelligent. She knew, documentarian. They were in their bubble. And she was saying they were voting against their interests. And I heard that multiple times from the Democrats because there was so much misinformation. Not saying there wasn't, but they just were stupid. They just didn't, in so many words, they didn't know what they were voting for. I discount that totally. I think people knew exactly what they were voting for and what they were voting against. And so once you look at that, then you guys say, okay, let's talk to them. Why do they think Trump is a better option?
Yeah. And that's when you get into a discussion of non-parallel criteria in a discussion where you bring all your evidence and they bring all their evidence. And all of a sudden it becomes a taste great, less filling kind of argument where it's like, why are you drinking that? It's like, they're two completely different parallels. It doesn't even match up. So let's jump into it. We started talking about the different demographics. We touched on that in a second. I was in the grocery store grabbing some things, and I like to head any BS off at the pass. So I say hi, good morning, and make jokes all the time around me just so I have a good social experience and nobody points the finger at me in case something goes bad. So that young man said good morning, so I'll leave him alone. So black lady comes around the corner with her cart, and I'm coming around the corner, and it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Hey, good morning, good morning. Good day, isn't it? I was talking about the weather. It was the day after the election. She looked at me like, what's good about it? And I was like, oh, dang. And this black lady was pissed, man. She looked like a person who usually went out of the house dressed nicely, but she was a mess. Like she hadn't slept. Her hair was a little unkempt, and she was just looking upset, dog. And I'm like, I could see where it was coming out, but I didn't want to acknowledge it. So I was like, I just gave her the face like, hey, what's going on? And she was like, you saw the election, right? And I'm like, yeah, I did see the election. I know it happened. Yes. Weird days we're in. Sad that it went this way. And I tried to console her a little bit. She was like, yeah. She started ranting about some stuff and then put her head down in a sad/mad fashion and walked her way down what aisle was that? It was the bread aisle. She walked down the bread aisle.
No, not the bread aisle.
Yeah.
All the carbs. Don't do it.
Load of carbs. But that was just...
Don't do it, sister. I'm going to just eat all this bread. That's a Trump.
I don't want a sliced bread. I just want the whole loaf.
Don't do it, sister.
Yeah, man.
Let's talk about that demographic. You want to dig into that? I am married to a black woman, and there was an opportunity for black women to be seen at a national level as the president. And I just felt, I think they didn't think the country let them down. My wife was feeling it. So I was very considerate. That's why she's having a good time now, because I think she's feeling that a little bit. And then I had to console her with some nice wine and things of that nature. But yeah, I think black women do feel, here's a guy that, whether you think about him or not, was convicted felon, tried to overturn the election, says terrible things, everything, all that, and people still voted for him over the, quote unquote black lady or the other. And to them, that seems almost crazy. And it was similar to the conversation that people say, how's this election even close? And I think that's the kind of stuff that keeps you in the bubble when you just have to understand. And that's because you're not getting information. You're just staying in your own bubble, and you got to go outside your bubble and realize that and I get their pain. So yeah, they're definitely going through it. And if you look at the statistics, we'll talk about the data. Overwhelmingly, black women voted I think Biden, they basically helped Biden win Georgia, which was a battleground state 4 years ago. And they overwhelmingly voted for Kamala, about 80%, 90%, basically 90% black women. So yeah, they're going through it right now.
Definitely. And you got to remember, we're in a situation where it's not talked about enough, but how they always talk about how they police black men's bodies, how we can't go certain places, talk certain ways. We don't really talk about a little more subtle policing of black women, which is, hey, they should uphold the system. Hey, they should keep this weird kind of peace. They should. And there's a definite pressure on black women. And you can see it especially if you get any corporate offices, you see how black women are treated differently. There's a certain pressure on them to uphold a way of being. And when you have black women doing what they feel they should be doing, hey, go to school, get the job, don't do these wrong things, stay out of trouble, fill off all the check marks, just don't be too off the mark and you'll be fine. And then you show somebody like Trump, who's the complete opposite of that. And it's really almost a slap in the face. Yeah, you did all this, your law degrees and all that, you spoke correctly or whatever. We don't care. We're going to get Donald Trump in the box. So it's a weird and hard situation. I don't like it. It pisses me off that the way it was brought to light or in that moment in the grocery store. But
and not to stay on this too much longer, but look, they gave Kamala no favors. She literally had 107 days to win an election. Most people have 2 years to do all that, go through the rigmarole. And so it's like that. And then also, I don't think how she could have done even better from the debate to everything else that she just...
Wait, hold on. What? You don't think she could have done any better?
Okay, I'll talk about that in a second. There's one thing. You're right. I made a gaffe. I should not run for politics because she did make a big thing. A big thing I thought was that she didn't run further enough from Biden. She wasn't aggressive enough to say, I am my own person and I would do something very different from Biden to separate herself from basically an unpopular president. But that was probably one of her biggest mistakes. Overall, given the circumstances, I thought she did as best as she could. There were some things she could have done differently, but I think they didn't give her any favors. Yeah. I don't know. But you said something that's you thought she could have done some things better?
Dude, we were talking about looking into the abyss. What are you, this lady? Oh my gosh, Kamala. The last thing I wanted to see was her in some fake setup, stepping out of a store with vinyl albums. Oh, it's the media. How'd you catch me here buying my favorite black artist on vinyl? It's kidding me? That's your press opportunity? That's your press? Come on, man. And she's not out here doing the press that people care about. She's showing off some silly vinyl albums. And if you're talking about out of touch, collecting vinyl is out of touch. Who's got the money and the space for a record player and this big collection of records? And it just smacks of being out of touch.
You think she should have did Joe Rogan, Donald Trump did? 3 hours with your boy.
What's funny, Rogan came back and talked about that actually. He was like, listen, I have a certain way of doing the podcast and everything, but I'll drop everything to do this podcast. Didn't happen. So he was like, wait a minute, you want me to do this and this? Okay, so now I'm not just dropping everything to do the podcast. I have to, and it became a whole bunch of hoops. And from his point of view, he was making it seem like it wasn't jumping through hoops. It was setting up a situation that was making the show inauthentic. So at some point he said,
"Oh wow!" So you're a Joe Rogan apologist? Oh no!
Oh my God! Here we go.
Joe Rogan apologist here. Look, I don't listen to Joe Rogan as much as you do, so I know probably have a little bit more opinion toward him. I just think when you have that much power and choice, you have to give both sides at least a little opportunity. But I would agree if Trump did 3 hours with him, and be honest with you, I might go listen to that. I was trying to go listen to the whole 3 hours because what I've been told, I don't know if you listened to it, but I've been told that he came off very well in that. Because now, granted, what threw me off when I listened to the first like 10 minutes, it was like Joe Rogan was just like feeding him. It was like, oh, it's so unfair how bad they're treating y'all. Oh, come on, Joe Rogan. Come on, man. What are you doing? This dude, before he first became president, ran for president, he talked about Obama was a fake president because of his birth certificate. So now you want to say everybody's unfair to Trump? Get out of here, crap. That kind of threw me off. But anyway, I will listen to it to see how Trump comes off because I agree. I'll be honest with you, I don't think let's be honest, before Trump was running for president, vast majority of us had a pretty decent opinion of him, right? I read Art of the Deal. I looked up to him. I was like, hey, this is a good business guy. Who didn't see The Apprentice? So it's not, we don't remember a time when Trump was, considered, he showed up in Home Alone. So it's like, we don't remember a time. We remember a time. So anyway, I don't want to get bogged down to the Joe Rogan of it all, but yeah, I think, and let's skip to that. Let's talk about branding real quick. Or did you want to go branding and podcast? So number one, social media, podcast word about battlegrounds, right? She went on Call Your Daddy? Is that the one that's called? Call Me Daddy. Alex Cooper. Yeah. Call Me Daddy. Alex Cooper, who is for women, which made sense for Kamala, who's really going hard for women. And Trump was on Theo Von. He was on, Patrick Bet David. He was on all the bros podcasts, man. Joe Rogan. That helps. Let's be honest. I think that did help because I sent you the link to Scott Galloway. He talked about the podcast election. And we talked about this. Go check out our video. Go check out our short. We talked about what runs the election is basically how marketers are going to start marketing for the next 4 years. Right. And we just saw podcasts won this election, at least on the margins, right? Because he was able to touch 43 million people. I think that was the last number I saw with his Joe Rogan podcast. Was Kamala did that interview with Brett Baird on Fox News. It only reached about 3-4 million people. So it goes to show you that
it will not have the replay and the clippage and all that.
Because people want authenticity, right? They want that realness, that rawness, and just having a conversation like you and I are having, real emotions, real conversations. And you don't get that on 10-minute clips on a heavily produced morning show or interview on TV. Yeah. And I think that's why the traditional media, that's why Kamala didn't do it. That's why as much. And that's why Trump stopped doing it because it just wasn't relevant anymore. People don't listen. They don't get their news from cable shows anymore. They don't get it from the New York Times or the newspaper. They get it from TikTok. They get it from podcasts. And so if you're not there, and Trump knew that very well, and he succeeded in that. So from a marketing standpoint, I believe podcasts are the future, or at least connecting to high-level influencers with your message. Because if you have a podcast, which is why we've created this podcast, this experience, because you become, people know you, right? I listen to podcasts all the time. It feels like I know them.
So in a 3-hour discussion, not a debate, not a question and answer session, not a stumping for whatever, you got 3 hours of a discussion. How do you get to know somebody better than in a discussion? And I'm looking at the Joe Rogan podcast here, 48 million views 2 weeks ago. And that's pretty high for a political discussion. And you're talking about regular people listening in, whether or not you agree with Joe Rogan and some of his wild things that he says. But it's so at what cost it's like, okay, if this guy gets on this podcast, what am I going to do? I'm Kamala. Who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to invest in? Is Oprah hitting the streets like that? I don't know. Do I even go to her? What do I? Is there a Netflix special? Got to do something that's on the money.
No, I agree. And it's going to those influencers that have the audience that you want to target. We were talking about Black women. I don't know if there was any top podcaster that was a Black woman, but Kamala did go on All the Smoke, which is a black men podcast, quote unquote, because it's two ex-basketball players. Did she go on Shannon Sharp's podcast? I thought she did. I didn't look it. I guess you can look it up. But yeah, she's trying to be out there doing her thing, man, trying to get that audience. Whereas Trump went for the bros, the young white male who listens to Joe Rogan, present company excluded.
So,
and he won that. He won that demographic.
The All the Smoke podcast on YouTube had 690,000 views as opposed to, and that was a month ago. So more than double the amount of time that the Joe Rogan podcast had been out. So yeah, All the Smoke, I don't know. I actually hadn't heard of those guys till Kamala Harris. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, I'm more of a sports guy. You probably, but
she should have gone to Breakfast Club.
Yeah, I wonder why she didn't.
Did she hold a big 3-hour interview at the Breakfast Club?
Just to your point, that may have been the other thing when we talk about the Democrats and how they got beat so bad, is because they just don't talk to the people, man. People want realness, man. This is a realness election. Even though Trump tells you what he's going to do to your face, you know what he is. And that's what people want, man. Even though it was foul, what he wants, but at least it was direct. Whereas I think they undercut their whole argument when, let's be honest, the Democrats, just talking about their weaknesses, was when they said Trump is lying to you and everything. But at the same time, we had Biden, who was 80 something years old, practically senile, and they were telling he was like a bull in the china shop. He was the strongest guy ever. And they lied to us too. So it's, wait a minute. So you going to fake lie to us, but then you going to say Trump is a liar too? No. And that's why I think they're still in they got their head up their butts or head up their ass. Sorry, we're going to just cuss on this one, but no, because think about it, man. They're saying that the people don't know the truth, and people know when they're being lied to, and they felt like they were lied to by the Democratic Party. So I say all I have to say is, look, it's, you got to be truthful, and you got to go on shows and be your authentic self if you want to win in the future elections. I think that's the lesson that should be learned from this. You have to be who you're going to be, good, bad, and warts and all, and people respect that.
Yeah. What else do we want to hit here? Yeah. You said you had some stats for, did you want to get more into the stats or?
Yeah, we can get into stats real quick. Yeah, we can get into stats real quick. I mean, look, if you look at the numbers, Trump won men, he won by 54%, which is huge, which is fine. We knew that. Women, though, were 53% of the electorate. But Trump still won 44%. Kamala won 54%. It's a majority, but it's a slight majority. If she had just got 65% of women, which she courted, let's be honest, with the abortion conversation, all that, then she would have won this election. But because they were higher women that voted in this election than men. With black people, which is 11% of the electorate, 86%. So black people stayed firm for the most part, just as a general folks. Unfortunately, Latinos, she won them, but barely, 53%. And so Trump was 45%. So that would probably would hurt her too. She had gotten more Latinos, and that's why that was a big effort. You remember that big controversy about Puerto Rico being a streaming pile of garbage? They try to get the celebrities out there. That's another lesson learned. Celebrities don't work. They had Beyonce out there. Taylor Swift said a few things. Fat Joe was out there. J-Lo. I don't think that swayed anybody.
Eminem and Barack at one point.
Yeah, Eminem, Barack was rapping to Lose Yourself. So it's, yeah, man. So if you can't win black folks, you can't win Latino folks, you can't win white women, the election was done, man. And that's probably what hurt her. Black men, she got 78% of our vote. 20%, 1 in 5 black men went for Trump. And I think the title of the episode, Mr. Benja, is 2 Woke Bros Go for Trump.
Wait.
We would get so many clicks on this one.
James, that was a joke.
No, it's the truth.
Put it down. What are you saying?
But yeah, man, 1 in 5 black men, but not granted, they were only 5% of the electorate, but still went for her. And then women, guess how many, what was the number for black women? 92% went for Kamala. So
yeah,
they are hurting.
Speaking back to my Yeah.
Yeah. And then Trump won Latino men 54%. So he definitely dominated on that. So anyway, the numbers don't lie, man.
So in general, I just get so angry at this stupid discussion because it's just dumb to me. It's convicted felons can't vote. Convicted felon in the White House. What are we doing? It's bizarre and I don't like it. But I don't know. How does this all affect business though?
Yeah, let's talk about that business. Unchecked capitalism. You talking about ultimate power? What was that? Unmitigated power. What is that?
Unlimited power. Yes.
That's another one, James.
Young Skywalker, you will die.
Oh man, that's a classic. Kidnapping. No, enough of that. But yeah,
so
I mean, look.
I want to bring up business just because I saw Nvidia jumps to $3.6 trillion market value after the Trump win. This is being reported from MSN via Reuters. Shares of Nvidia rallied to a record high on Thursday, making the chipmaker the first company in history to surpass a stock market of $3.6 trillion as Wall Street extended a rally sparked by Donald Trump's return to the White House. And they're the dominant AI chip maker, by the way, in case you're wondering how this company got here.
And you know why, right?
Talk to me.
Business wise, he's introduced tariffs, right? And so basically anybody that imports chips or anything like that, they're going to raise the fees of getting those imports in. So that means the price of those chips is going to be more expensive than the ones that we produce in house. So if you're a business, you're going to go for the cheaper ones, which are built in house. But so that's why they're like, oh, we're going to have no choice but to buy Nvidia chips, right? Because the tariffs are going to be so high. But that could mess up everything else. When tariffs go up for us, what happens is you create a prisoner's dilemma, right? Where basically you do something to us, then we're going to do it to you. So basically we start shipping stuff overseas. I don't know what our percentage of exports are, but then they're going to raise tariffs on us. And so basically our exports revenue is going to go down. So it's economics 101, man. Trump talks a lot of stuff. So we'll see what stuff he can get through. But the rumor is he's got the Senate, potentially the House. He's got the Supreme Court, right? The majority from a conservative standpoint. So he literally can push anything through that he wants. So we'll see what economic policies he puts in place that would help us. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see. We're in a different geopolitical environment. And from an economic standpoint, I don't know if Trump and his team realize that it may not be as easy to get some of these policies through from that standpoint. But we do know that the Feds, of course, the day after election, lowered the interest rates. So he's already going to probably claim that the economy is already better for you. I already proved it. So, and this is one of those things that he won on. He won on because people felt the economy was bad.
Yeah, that is, we didn't speak about that enough, but that is overwhelmingly, I would say, probably the overwhelming factor as far as I can tell. When the economy's bad, they don't like the incumbents. So it's not like you had enough time in 4 years or whatever for the economy to really, truly reflect. But they're like, hey, gas prices are high and this guy's in office. Screw that guy. And it just becomes that simple of an argument in their heads. So if you're not addressing that, then you're talking, back to the whole elites thing and thinking people are stupid. That's what's on people's minds. Address that, and then maybe we'll listen to whatever else you have to say. I don't want to hear about favorite Nas album.
Yeah, they were trying to pick off identity politics. Women want abortion. Latinos want to be focused on border issues and how we can help immigration. But it's really was the economy stupid. I went to go get a burger today, and my son wanted a bacon burger. Bacon was like $2.59 to put a piece of bacon. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's another burger, dog. Or 2 burgers.
Exactly. So man, I think people are not stupid. They feel it in their pockets when they go to the grocery store. Everything's more expensive. And nothing else. If you don't have a budget, you just feel like your dollars is not going as far as it used to. And I think people realize that.
Real quick, because I know we're closing out here. The McDonald's has an amazing way of getting into the public consciousness. And so what they've been doing lately with is people who hack the menu. So you've got the dollar menu, right?
Mhm.
You get a Big Mac and you take the chicken Big Mac and you put them together. Like you take the beef out and put it in with the chicken one. And John Cena is now calling this the Chief Big Mac, the chicken and beef Big Mac. And it's gone viral to a certain extent. But it's like this thing where I can make a burger like that for $2, or I can make a burger with a quarter pound, one burger, and then get like the dollar pack of McNuggets, put the McNuggets inside the burger. Now I have my McNugget burger, $2. It's the economy. And that kind of stuff is what's popping right now. It just is. And talking about $2.59 for some bacon. Get out of here with that.
I know, man. And I was like, okay, fine, man. But you're right. It's like another burger, man. It's crazy for some bacon. And it was like small pieces of bacon too. Mr. Benja, do you mind we go over just a little bit? I wanted to talk a little bit about entertainment real quick.
Oh, yeah. What kind of entertainment we got?
What do you think about this election foretells of like entertainment, right? This is a show versus business. We talked about the business side. Now we're talking about the show side of what, if we live in a world where there's a lot of red staters, let's put it out there, a little bit more conservative, that like conservative views. We're talking about folks like what's the shows? I forgot the name of it. What's it called? But anyway, any like those religious movies or just some of the ones that are just more family oriented or just targeted toward, conservatives. Like Twister was trying to be targeted conservatives. Are we going to see more movies like that?
I don't see how we won't. There's something that's been rumbling. You see it on sites like Rumble. That's why I left. I don't know how many of you guys have even checked out Rumble, Truth Social. You've been watching what's going on X and Elon Musk kind of rallying that energy. Even if it's not politically aligned with him, it's energetically aligned with what he wants to do. We're talking about people like, hey, where can I watch this entire 2-hour long video? I can't find it on YouTube. Oh, it's on X. Like, what? Are you kidding me? I got to go watch it on X. Where else are you going to go? Okay, I guess I'll go watch it on X. So yeah, alternative types of media will be more open, I think, to a lot of these different viewpoints and views. And what was that movie a while back? The Sniper, I think, was really big with the right side of things, right wing side of things. Yeah, I think we'll just see more of that popping up here and there.
Yeah, I would say I would agree, man. Country is like the number one kind of music that's filtering, that's top. It's the place a little bit of rap. You still have the TikTokers doing their little thing with rap and stuff. But let's be honest, country is everywhere now, right? That's become more prevalent. But when you look at TV, Taylor Sheridan, right? He's running things. We were going to talk about him, but I was watching that show, Lioness. Very much a red stater, right? There's like little moments where he'll pepper in some comments from the MAGA crowd. You're like, oh, this is weird. There was like the kids were talking about trans rights. I'm like, where's this coming from? I want to see people get shot up. Yeah. So it's like Taylor Sheridan. He's talking about the West. He's talking about military. And he's got 8 shows, roughly, really about 7 shows. But Yellowstone's the top one. And so he's dominating on television. So it does seem there's this groundswell of just conservatism, like coming to the forefront after the shift over to, obviously we had the Obama years, which was somewhat of a shift, but that's when we had the legalization of gay marriage, right? Under Obama. And then we had the opportunity to vote for a woman president. And yeah, man, just, I think maybe people said it was just too much. We got to go back. And so now we're seeing the other side of this.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think people in general haven't been seeing as much of it as is really out there because the platforms themselves tend to cater to leftist ideologies. And I don't mean that to say Threads, Facebook, and all those are inherently leftist, but they will punish more spicy talk from the right than they will the same thing on the left. And they're really not equivalent things, so I hesitate to say same thing. But yeah, if somebody starts talking about, like, there was an argument I saw online. Person said, man, you need to quit blah, blah, blah. And the person was like, don't misgender me. I was like, and I could tell the person was just talking how they speak. Like, man, you need to shut up. Don't misgender me. Man, what you talking about? The person literally didn't know. And I see all these comments like, yeah, don't misgender them. And the guy was just like, what is y'all talking about? This man is crazy. Man, come on. But the commenter didn't know. And I just watched this whole argument spiral out of control and people arguing against other people. And the two
What
main...
you call it? It's like parallel tracks. People are talking down to folks. What show? I was watching some TV show. It was it was a horror film. It was hilarious, man, because they basically was using the Gen Z's language against them. They were freaking out because they thought there was a mass murderer in the house, but they were just like, don't mislabel me. I'm on this. It was just all the terms that they used. And I looked at that. It was a comedy because it's like, that's how we feel. It's like they got all these different terms. I don't even understand half of them, right? Because I'm a little older, so I don't know that. But then also, I think the vast majority of the country, we see now, don't really want to be this pronoun correctness, this other stuff. People don't want that anymore because it's like, for what? And I get it. People want to be seen. I get it. People want to be seen. But it becomes a point where it's just like, it messes up communication because I didn't get your pronoun right and you're offended now. But so now I can't talk to you.
Exactly. And it's funny. I was at an art show and a guy was messing up his own pronouns. I was like, and they were trying to pull him to the... No, he actually identified as him. That's right. Yeah, they were pulling him to the side, like, and he's, what are you talking about? Like, all right. Anyway.
It was so pronoun. I love it.
Yeah, so I don't want to go into it, but basically...
We need to go on it. We need to go. It's a Trump America, man. We got to start going into it.
Basically, he was a cross-dresser, but not transgender, right? So he just liked to dress in women's clothes, but he was not transgender. This dude like works on cars and he identifies as a man, but he cross-dresses and things. So when people were talking to him, he was referring to his dress and his style. And he's, no, I don't care, man, woman, I'm both and all that. And I'm like, no, dude, I know you and that's not what you're saying. And then they tried to fight for him. He's, wait, what are you saying? Did I say that? I don't know what I'm saying. And I'm looking at him like, oh gosh, this argument's just going bad. It's in the middle of an art show, so I had to just listen. He's okay. But so they need to understand that I get it. I'm sorry. I think there's been a large miscommunication here. There's punch over in the side. Let's all have some... It was a very diverse crowd, but I could just tell that communication was going bad. Some people were arguing this, some people were arguing that. Yeah, and back to the point, I was saying that Meta and all these social platforms have wanted to play it safe. So they've, by the process that they've instituted, have, I think, pushed back a lot of these voices. Many rightfully, but it seems like there's just been a big quelling of a lot of the voices. Now that a lot of the voices are a little more free now, they feel a little more, hey, we can say more of what we want. That's definitely going to show up in media and things like that.
Well, that's funny, man.
Going to be interesting.
Remember how Trump said he was going to arrest Mark Zuckerberg? Did you see Mark Zuckerberg, what he said when this got elected?
Zuck's been working out. He's not the same old Zuck. What y'all talking about?
He was very congratulations to Trump. Play to say with Donald Trump this election, that strategy worked. He was very, hey, congratulations on winning the election. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and other business leaders congratulate Trump. Let's see, what is Zuckerberg? Congratulations to President Trump on a decisive victory. We have great opportunities ahead of us as a country. Looking forward to work with you and your administration. Now, let's not forget, Donald Trump said he would arrest Mark Zuckerberg. So we'll see. Someone should write this down. All the promises all the things that Trump said on the election, and see which ones he follows through on. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Like when he said Obama is the founder of ISIS.
But crazy like a fox, man. Just say whatever, man, just to get the attention. Interest, desire is marketing 101, man. And we didn't really get into this, but branding. Trump has been branding since day one, where there's branding of Trump media on his buildings, or when he literally said, hey, I want to send these checks out, but I want to sign my name. People who were low, quote unquote, low information voters, they remember, you know what? Donald Trump did give me that check. So why not vote back for him? I might get another check from him.
Yeah.
It may have been as simple as that, Mr. Benja.
No, dead serious, man. And this is what I mean, man. I do try to talk to people, and it's painful. It really is, because I did not come from as a child growing up and everything. I didn't really come from a place where I wanted to or felt the need to really talk to a lot of people. I was just like, I got my computer, my books, my cartoons, my video games, get off me. And I was just doing me. But yeah, man, the reluctance of everyone trying to talk to each other, not talk at, talk with. Just, you guys got to talk to people, man. Just, hey, where are you coming from? What's this about? They're going to say something crazy, even if it's from the left, middle, some conspiracy stuff, whatever. Someone's going to say something that you think is crazy. You have to realize you said something yourself that is crazy to them. We act like we try to act like we're the same, that we're all equal, and we are. But there's a cultural celebration of differences, I think, that we need to have. Hey, I'm over here, you're over here. We're both people. Let's talk through it.
No, I will lead with this, man. Just lead with empathy, man. Just consider everybody. Literally, I had a guy that was right before the election, we had a hurricane down here, Hurricane Milton. He was going to do our backyard, cut the trees down. And he was earnest. He was like, hey, man, I'll cut your tree down. I'll give you a good deal. I said, okay, you're a good businessman. I kept getting distracted because he had a red MAGA hat on. So I was like, okay. So I talked to my wife. I don't know. He'll give a chance. But man, I talked to him and I was like, he's a businessman. He's trying to make it happen. Let's see if we can work together, man. So lead with empathy, guys. Don't go in there, just assume people are the worst because of what they believe. I just hope that they get everything they want from this election. And if they don't, they realize I just got to be more discriminatory next time to understand who I'm getting in bed with, and that's why I try to do like you, Mr. Benja. I mean, you get to a point as you get wiser, you realize what a lot of this stuff is not worth it, man. You realize like lead with empathy, lead with kindness, the rest of it's because what happens is if you get down that path with every little slight and be offended by every little thing, it just takes you off your path so much that you'll never achieve the stuff that you want to achieve. And so you might as well just go down the path of least resistance so you can focus on the things that really need your attention, which is looking at yourself and the abyss to get to the next level. So yeah, that's my advice to everybody during this interesting time. Whether Trump stays in office forever or arrest people, become a banana republic, that's for other people to decide. But for me and my house, we're going to figure out what the next steps are. And if we got to get out of the country, we'll get out of the country.
Yeah.
Mr. Benja, anything else going on for you this week?
Oh, man. I'm getting comfortable in that abyss, man. It's like the cold plunge every morning. Just jump in it.
I love it. I love it. Well, everyone, we're going to wrap up. We went a little bit over today, but man, I hope you guys really enjoyed this one. Look, if you like what we talked about, please subscribe, comment at Show vs. Business on X, aka Twitter, Threads, YouTube, and Instagram. Listen to us at Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. You want to check us out, see more about what we do, go to our website, Show vs. Business. Mr. Benja, have a good one.
You too, my man. Peace.